everyone, and welcome to the Taboo Talk Time podcast. My name is Dr. Eva Brown, and I'm your host. And I have amazing Lucia Pavone, and I'm totally saying that right, just so you guys know. She is the business owner of Luscious Love Life. And if you want to check her out, her website is lusciouslovelife.us. And today we're going to be talking about the 4 C's of a sensual woman, which I'm really excited about talking about with you. When I saw the title of the podcast, I was like, yes, let's talk about that.
Absolutely.
So I have quite a few questions, but I'd like for you to just maybe say a few things about yourself, some things that the audience would need to know in order to drop in with you right now and spend some time with you.
Wonderful. Well, Eva, thank you so much for inviting me to be here. I'm so grateful to be able to share this conversation with you. I really enjoy everything that you've done to further the conversations around topics that don't normally get talked about. So it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Lucia.
Share a little bit about me. Oh, well, gosh, for the last 15 years, I've had a very fun, interesting story of my own sexual emancipation. And I took on a role as being a sensual researcher. And a lot of people ask, well, what the heck is that? And truly, I dove deep into my own research around my pleasure, my orgasm. I lived in an intentional community, San Francisco, for several years. And with my husband of 22 years, and we both actually researched together. And I'm also a mom. So I have an almost 18-year-old daughter. And my specialty is around communication, relationships, and the focus is on what I call deliberate embodied orgasm, which is more than just a technique of extended orgasm, but really a lifestyle of embodied pleasure and living through your senses in everything you do. So not just limited to the bedroom or a technique that moves energy, but really how you are in everyday life. And that, in essence, adds to your sex life, your every part of your life, your relationship, parenting, whatever you want, your business, all those different pieces.
Yeah, I love that. So you really took yourself on and decided to do some really deep dive research within your own self, your own body. And through that, you've come to understand a lot of different aspects of yourself that you're now allowed or able to apply to other women to help them bring in their own sexuality.
Yes, absolutely. And a lot of the pieces really start, before you go into the deep dive around sexuality and orgasm, really the unraveling of the pieces that kind of gets you there to the place where you feel, the stuckness or the resistance to your own pleasure. So I love doing that type of support and deep dive in the courses that I teach and the retreats I lead. So it goes farther than just, here's a room, touch your genitals and have a, better orgasm. It really is about taking on the parts of yourself that are the most vulnerable, that are that do rise the energy to the surface so that you can actually recreate your own story for your pleasure.
Yes, I love that. About a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I graduated with my Ph.D. and I was in that research, mode. And, quite frankly, I wasn't having a lot of sex with my husband. I was maybe having sex twice a month, maybe 3 times a month, because I was just making excuse after excuse. I was getting my research done and I was in that masculine mode all the time, not really stepping into my femininity, right? Yeah. So when I graduated, I feel like I got some of my femininity back, right? And I started to really explore things. And I did a podcast with Jen and Ben Rode, and they know I talk about them all the time. But I did a podcast with them and they're like, yeah, we have sex like twice a day. And I'm like, that's pretty amazing. Tell me what your secret is, And so they really opened my eyes to a whole another level of understanding when it comes to sexuality and sensuality, that, making love connects us to our source energy, right? Or Mother Gia, that's where we bring life into this world. And it really reframed my whole understanding of sex and sexuality with my husband, and really brought me into this place where I was tapping into my husband's energy more because he has great energy. I'm like, why am I not tapping into this resource for myself? Not even just from an orgasmic perspective, but also just from a place of wanting to connect with him on a different level than just the orgasm focus. Does that make sense?
Of
So,
course. Yeah.
yes,
We
it's
live in
really
a,
cool.
yeah, we live in a very,
Yeah.
a very, what I like to call, I'm not sure if I can swear, fuck oriented culture.
Yes,
Uh,
right. Go for it.
so, oftentimes we've been told that the best sex is between a man and a woman,
Yeah,
penis into vagina with a goal of climax.
right.
Although it's a beautiful experience, it's very limiting, I think,
Very.
on what we can experience on an everyday level.
Mm-hmm.
And that idea, around our sexual energy, it's like women innately carry the energy in their bodies, and it ebbs and
Totally.
flows all the time. So
Yeah.
we have this like un never ending flow of energy that it's available literally at our fingertips
At all
and
times.
at all times whenever we want. So yeah, that's so fun. I love that that you really dove deep in. It's so
Yeah.
fun.
And I had to break through like a lot of things. Like I had some shame and I had some anxiety about my body that was still coming up for me because
Yeah.
when I started having sex, oh, by the way, here's the story, right? I walked out of the room when I was doing the podcast. I walked out and I'm like, Paul, my husband, I'm like, babe, if Jen and Ben can do it twice a day, we can too, you know? And he's like, you don't have to ask me twice, honey, right?
Right.
So it was one of those things that it really transformed our understanding, both my husband's and I understanding of sexuality for us. And
Right.
we're happy to say that we make love almost every day without fail. Yeah, I know. And it's been so good. And I noticed that when I don't tap into that energy, I'm a little off throughout the day. I'm like, what's happening here? And, I just think it's so important for men and women. And the conversation that we're having here is so important to me because not only have I made my own transformation and you've made your own transformation, but we're leading the way for other people to break free from anxiety, from shame, from guilt, from fear of not being good enough, all those types of things that really inform women and men's sexuality.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Lisa.
It's a spiritual journey, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It can be a spiritual journey, and it can also be, an experience of present time, embodiment, which, you
Right.
know, I I tend to weave the pieces of spirituality and religion out of what I teach, because one of the things that I've noticed is what's gotten us into this predicament in the first place is our conditioning. So our conditioning around our sexuality, especially for women, is really based on culture and religion and our experiences. So I find it kind of interesting that we
Okay.
continue to weave in
Interesting.
spirituality and into our sex lives
Yeah.
because it's innate. It's not necessarily
Yeah.
separate. So when I talk about sexuality and sensuality,
Mm-hmm.
I come from a place of, very straight line conversations. Like sexuality in itself has nothing to do with your sensuality. It really just means your sexual preference, your your how you identify sexually, and your readiness to have a sex act. Whereas sensuality is how you engage one or more of your senses. And you can actually apply your sensuality to all parts of your life, as you know, and you
Mm-hmm.
can derive pleasure from all those pieces, whether it be a sex act, and that you take that great pleasure from experiencing through your senses, or taking a walk and smelling the roses, or
Definitely.
enjoying little babies' feet as they wriggle, and as a newborn, that are totally sentient and feeling. So when I talk about sexuality, one of the things I notice around women's resistance, or why women actually, aren't having the sex lives that they want, is that they're so conditioned that it's an automatic response. Their brain has trained them truly to like put up resistance to their own pleasure,
Yeah.
because we think we're bad. Like I grew up, I don't know how you grew up, but I grew up very strict Roman Catholic
Yeah.
family, where I went to church every week. And it was not acceptable to even talk about sexuality or what I desired.
Mm.
Pleasure, not even a topic for conversations.
Mm.
I couldn't even use a tampon because my
Yeah.
parents told me I was going to not be a virgin anymore. And
Right.
all
Yeah.
those concepts, even of
I know.
virginity,
It's
they're
amazing.
they're based in a antiquated
Yeah.
model of sexuality. So I
Yes.
really love this idea of kind of breaking those limits and just saying things for what they are, which are, it's your right to feel pleasure. Um,
Mm.
because, the clitoris, which is only purpose, as you know, is to feel exquisite pleasure, is limitless. The amount of energy you can actually feel in your body, it is there for you if you're willing to unravel the pieces of your own story.
Mm.
Yeah.
I'm totally dropping in with you right now for sure. I love the distinction between sexuality and sensuality. I love that you're trying to break free from societal norms, cultural norms, and just giving it what it is what it is type thing, rather than defining it or putting any type of label onto it or any particular reframe. And just embodying that we have the birthright of feeling pleasure, of experiencing joy. And I like the fact also that you talked about sensuality is not just sexually related, that you can, see a rose. I mean, looking at a rose for me or feeling a rose is a sensual experience for me.
Absolutely.
A baby is a sensual experience, touching soft fur, that's a sensual experience for me. So I love that you bring the collective thought of sexuality because I think it expands people's understanding of what sensuality actually is
Yeah.
beyond the beyond really.
Right. I think most of us, when we hear, I mean, I used to think of sensual as related to like garters and, high heels. Like, how
Right.
can it be sensual? But
Yeah.
truly, as I've, even gone through my own experiences, as a business owner or as a mother, like I can look at places in my life where, I can find pleasure in anything I do. If pleasure and fun is really the intention of what you're going for, that you're going to find it in all the pieces of your life, right? Like you're going to enjoy the process of, how you handle your food and when you wake up and you get dressed in the morning and what you're smelling around you. And then could you imagine like when you take that and slow down without any orientated goals in
Mm.
your sex life, and then you can actually apply sensuality to it, and anything can be a really beautiful sensual experience without this idea that you have to get to the end of the act of fucking or sucking or any of those pieces, and that you can actually just experience you
Mm.
know, a kiss just as pleasurably as you would intercourse, like on that level. When you train your
Yes.
senses, it's freaking far out
It's
for sure.
totally far out. Yes, I experienced it with my husband. I think he's the only man that I've ever experienced that with.
Yeah, I know, it's beautiful.
It brings you to a whole another level of sensuality in your life when you can tap into that. And it doesn't always have to be sexual. I love that distinction. Very cool. I'm going to
Yeah.
take a little bit more time getting dressed in the morning. As you can see, I'm a little bit of a tomboy, right? I do dress up. I like to get dressed, but sometimes I just want to wear my hat and a t-shirt.
I love that. I have my hat. It says "Be Happy" on it, and I
Yeah.
like to go for a run in the morning and just
Yeah.
enjoy. It's I got dressed up because I'm on Zoom.
You look amazing. You look super sassy and amazing.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
I love it. Okay, so tell me, what is the greatest block that holds women back from experiencing a pleasurable sex life?
Yeah, I think we just touched on that, and I think a lot of it is, quite honestly, it is our own resistance to pleasure, which really stems from our conditioning, like our as young girls, we're told a lot of things. We're promised that the white knight is going to come up on the horse and they're going to give us everything, and in return, it's our duty to give them pleasure. And
Right.
so I think the thing that really holds us back is this, we want pleasure, but we're not necessarily understanding how that works. We don't know what we really want. We don't feel connection with our bodies. We're resistant to actually feeling it within ourselves,
Yes.
and that whether it was it could been a traumatic experience or, you
Mm.
know, uh, religious conditioning,
Yeah.
whatever it was, it imprints in our brain, right? And so our body naturally tries to protect us. It
Mm.
like sets up its defenses. So if we look at something as fearful or bad or not, or not very pleasurable, we're up against our own resistance right away. So we tighten up
Yes.
and we're
Yes,
like,
and that's not going to help. Yeah,
no, it's
I've
not.
learned long ago that relaxation is the key to arousal. If you can't get to that space and
Right.
be relaxed and not feel that resistance, which you're talking about. And, it's interesting with a lot of my couples, a lot of my lady couples especially, they don't even realize that they are resisting.
Right.
It's
It's
just
a
a
normal part of our lives.
yeah.
you
Mm.
know it's like even with my sensual training and like 5,000 hours of like complete surrender and into my own deliberate embodied orgasm and
Yeah.
have my my clitoris stroked, even that, like I still come up against my resistance because it's so deeply
Mhm.
part of our culture. And we go into that mode, right? Like, oh, I gotta get it done. Once I'm done with this project, then I can have this. Once I'm done with this, then I can take my bath. Once I finish this, then I can, like, masturbate. It's like, what
Yeah.
if we put a reframe around this particular idea that self-care is an afterthought, or that really this is just we could have our pleasure be the seat of our day, like from the
Mhm.
get-go. And, that can be the foundation. So when I talk about the 4 C's, I talk about our own connection to ourself as like the first C, like connection to our bodies. And that doesn't necessarily have to be uh, something sexual. It could just be like a couple of minutes a day, right, Eva, to drop in and just acknowledge, like, this is your like yummy, juicy vessel that you are, entering this world in for a short amount of time. What is it feeling like today? What is it desire? What does it want? And I don't think women actually slow down and ask themselves, it's like a heart and, on your, pussy, like just tapping in, like, what do I want today? Like, what is
Mm.
it I want?
Mhm.
We're really ruled by the external forces. And so what
Mhm.
that does is I think it causes us to just resist it all, because we're like, well, I don't have enough time in the day, time, money, sex, all the things that we're up against.
Yeah,
And
it's kind of like a new reframe, right? It's
yeah.
they all talk about happy life, happy wife, right? But it's really happy vagina, happy life. I mean, that's really where it's at.
Yeah, when our vulvas are taken care of, our pussies are taken care of, it's like, and I think we're at total responsibility to show up,
Yeah.
not feeling like somebody else has to do that for us.
Right.
At the same time, it's like really having any kind of partner that really is, wants to have that kind of connection. It is really wonderful for to really have a partner who wants to do that with you too, for sure.
Yes, it is lovely. Very cool. So you were going into the different C's, right? Going
Yeah.
back to it, the 4 C's of a sensual woman. So the first thing is to drop into their connection with their body and ask their bodies and themselves, like, what do you want? What are you in the mood for right now? And not doing it when you're done with your task, but maybe reframing that and doing it before your task, right? Enjoying
Yeah.
the pleasurable moment and not always doing it as a receiving or reward type thing.
Right. Engaging your senses, right, before you actually go into any kind of connection with anybody else, like really understanding your connection to your senses. And I think, culture has this atrophy. All of our experience can have us atrophy in our senses. So as you start to kind of like unravel and unwind,
Mm.
you start to understand that, like, that energy is like your creative force. It's that, it's the juicy parts, that fuel, the intimate connections with other people, whether they're in the bedroom or outside the bedroom. It's that fuel that, people talk about, like doing business in the feminine. It's like that kind of term is really fun to me, because it's like, it's just energy, whether it's feminine or masculine. It's just that, reserve of tappable energy that fuels you into creating, 7, 8 figure businesses, and just, or 6, 7, 8, whatever you're at. So,
Yeah, right.
it's like, and having fun with it, for sure. And,
Mhm.
that's definitely like, the C. If you don't understand your own connection to self, it's really difficult to actually go in there and have any experience that's going to be, worthwhile with another person. If you're not coming in all in, at total responsibility, 100% responsible for your pleasure, then it's not going to be as fun.
Totally. I really love that. So for women that are resisting masturbation, your recommendation would be for them to try.
Yeah, I mean, it is May, National Masturbation Month. I actually have what's called 5-a-day May challenge, like 5 minutes every day. I think we could find 5 minutes to do everything. 5 minutes to,
meditate.
Meditate, doing things that we don't want to do. So why not actually drop in without a goal? And, there's a lot to be had in 5 minutes. I've had some of the best orgasm, deliberate embodied orgasm in my life in 3 minutes. So
yeah, that's so cool. Right. Exactly. Yeah. So dropping into that space, 5 minutes a day in May. All right. The challenge is on.
Absolutely. But, the next, continuing with those 4 C's, when you know yourself, oftentimes we'll start to understand like what we want, but there's very few tools around communication. And so that's the second C, is our own sensuality is actually a subset of how well we are willing to communicate what it is that we're experiencing, what we're noticing. And so there's not a lot of places that I've seen that actually teach you around about, how to describe, what you notice. There's a lot of people will prescribe you things to fix you. But I kind of like, fixing, I believe that you are perfect just the way you are. All the experiences up until now, they make you the perfect being that you are.
Right.
And you have an opportunity for progress and change, right, throughout your whole life, which is coming from that point of view or that place. You can actually learn about what it is that you're noticing in your own body, and then having these fun tools to like create win-win communications, to be able to ask for what you're desiring and get it, the way you want it without compromise. I think a lot of people think that they have to compromise, their sex life or their pleasure. So for the sake of somebody else. And what happens is when we compromise, Eva, everything's, we start to build up the bullshit in our bodies. Like, oh man, I really wanted to do that, but well, I guess I'll just do this because it'll be faster, less, it doesn't take as long, or, he really wants me to do that, so I'll just do this. And then we're not actually, right. Or we have to have sex every single day because this is this, like,
right.
Even that. And I'm not saying that sex twice a day is not fun. Just don't get me wrong on that.
No, not at all. It's a different thought process. Yeah.
Right. So being deliberate with intention around what you are desiring, communicating it, using tools that really support you in creating those win-win communications.
Yeah.
That is really going to further your experience as a sensual being, because, once you understand what it is that you're desiring, if it's just, the way your partner touches you, or how you like a meal prepared, that you can communicate those things, and land those communications in a way that makes it really fun for everybody.
Yes, totally cool. Playfulness and enjoying and communicating is definitely, for me, numero uno. So I really like that recommendation. And for those of you guys that are listening, go to www.relationshiprevolutionaries.com, and you can check out the Communication and Intimacy e-course program that I've laid out for you. If you guys are looking to get your needs met in the relationship, learning how to get your needs, wants, and desires met, in my opinion, really reduces conflict in the relationship, and really, helps you guys live a more on purpose type of relationship when you're able to communicate at that level. So really great, Lucia. So let's see. So what are the other 2 C's?
Sure. Well, the third C, I think, is probably one of the most fun, and that is your clitoris. Really understanding that, as a woman, if you haven't had a relationship yet with your genitals at all, that it's time to like really drop in. The clitoris with 8,000 pressure sensitive nervines just on the glands. There's so much more that's being explored, obviously, in the structure that, is much bigger, than the tip of the iceberg, that you actually have an opportunity every day to live your life, as is if you're delighting in a 5-course meal, when you actually tap into, your clitoris and your pleasure on that level.
Love it.
And and the final C is community. I think that as women, we think that we're supposed to do everything alone, and that, that it's very linear and everything has to be this way. But what I found growing up with 3 sisters and women around me all the time, I always had, since I was very young, women's circles. I mean, I'm 45 now, and it's been a long journey of always dropping into community around women, whether it's ritualistically or whether it's going to dinner and creating meals together. When women get together, there's like this unstoppable, energetic force. And when we start to actually talk about the fun things in life, I know that in the past, I used to sit with women and we do something called the stitch and bitch. And, as a young girl, everything. I used to, I sew, and I used to make costumes. And so it's one of the things, that little tidbit about me that I got from my mama. She's a master tailor. And so I learned to sew, and,
Cool.
we would do these things and we'd bitch about all the things that were wrong in our relationships and all these places. And so what I'm saying about community of women is not like, hey, let's go and talk about all the pain in our life, because
Right.
our culture is really pain oriented, puritanical culture. It thrives on the shit, but there's so much shit out there already.
So much shit. We don't need any more. Thank you.
Like, what if we change the conversation to like, hey,
Yeah.
I just had the best orgasm of my life. Do you want to talk about that? Or, hey,
Yeah.
I just had this incredible experience, like eating a fig on a warm summer day at the farmer's market.
Awesome. I know, right? We don't even talk about our luscious, amazing experiences. It's interesting because I even find myself, when I do have conversations with some of my girlfriends, I find myself getting to this place where it's almost uncomfortable to even bring it up. It's terrible, but I do it anyway because I have a mission just like you, to be able to have those types of conversations with my lady girlfriends. And some of them get it and some of them don't. But it's really a really important conversation to have with your friends in terms of, are you getting together and are you bitching, or are you getting together and having a community in which you guys are talking about amazing experiences, sensual experiences, maybe some awesome thoughts or ideas that might expand your world or your girlfriend's world. I totally believe in community, especially if it's the community that's supporting that kind of conversation.
Absolutely. I mean, how much more fun would it be to share with your sisters that you had this incredible, gratifying experience with yourself or a partner? We don't ask permission to talk about, people's cancer or, sexual trauma or all the painful parts of our life, because it's so acceptable. And you have a show called Taboo Talk. It's like those places. Why is orgasm and clitoris and pussy and cock, why are those words so taboo? I mean, it's like, why are we here? How do we get here? The basic fundamentals of sexuality. It's like, the reframe is actually what's going to have it, have those old paradigms shift, when we actually put these words on the table for fun, for pleasure, then we can start to, elevate the vibration, right?
Yeah, elevating the vibration, exactly. Yeah, because we're so used to using medicalized terms like penis and vagina and that type of thing, and it doesn't really extend the same energy as using the other words, so it's a whole different thought process, and of course you guys can sit there and judge about this name and that name. Well, oh, what are they using that word for, right?
Sure.
That we're having more fun, people, okay?
Right.
So, it's the idea of having fun and enjoying yourself, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's, fun is an honorable goal, and it is the highest goal in my personal life. Everything I do, I go and lead with the idea that, if it's fun, I will do it. And if it's not fun, you're probably not going to continue doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
I refuse to compromise my pleasure and fun.
Yes.
And my life. So
me too, especially as I get older, you know, it's
yeah.
less and less and less and less, you know. But I just wanted to say thank you for coming on to this podcast today. I hope it was pleasurable and enjoyable for you.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the process of getting up and taking a shower and making my coffee. And like, I prepared to like be here with you and
Thank you.
in gratitude and morning, you know, connection. And I am so
Beautiful.
grateful that you're out there making this available for people. So
I
thank
know. You're welcome. Thank you very much. It's a really big passion of mine. Breaking through societal norms and hinging the taboos,
Heck
right?
yeah.
We have conversations about this. And then of course couples, you know, I love my couples, right?
Yeah,
All
I
my
love
all
it too.
my couples.
Which is so fun.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you guys enjoyed this, you can get her more information on her website. She has a free gift, a video series called Surrender to Self-Love. It's the 7 days of sensual connection. She's going to get me all the links for that on the show notes, and anything else new that she has coming up. She's going to be there. If you want to contact her and work with her, she's amazing. It's www.lusciouslovelife.us again. And I'm going to be putting everything in the show notes. We really appreciate all of your listenership, guys. You guys are awesome, showing up every day and listening to these types of conversations is really what moves the world forward. And of course, you know, if you're not already subscribed to Relationship Revolutionaries, please go ahead and subscribe to the top 3 relationship killers, how to overcome. We've got a lot of really cool videos and things like that that we send out through email. So you can go ahead and check that out at www.relationshiprevolutionaries.com. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.